Today we'll start with the third chapter of Indian economy, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. Before starting the third chapter, we should know the background of this one, why the LPG has been introduced in India. So we'll go back to 1980s where there was a financial crisis. Now what do you mean by financial crisis? Financial crisis means when there is a mismanagement of Indian currency, or you can say the money. Before that one, we should know how the government is working. So government is an institution, not an individual. Therefore, government has two things. First is its expenditure, or where it is spending. It's mostly spent on two things. The first one is implementation of various policies, just like unemployment, poverty is there. And second one is general administration, just like defense and every other thing. So these are the spendings. And another one is revenue, from where it is generating its money. Or we can say the income. So the first way of generating income or revenue is taxation. It includes both the taxes. One is direct tax, another is indirect tax, as well as public sector enterprises. Now public sector enterprises are those companies which are owned by the government. This is the way how the government is working. One side it is generating income, now it is bringing the money. Another side is same money is being spent on different things. During the time of 1980s, there was a deficit. Now what do you mean by deficit? Deficit means when the expenditure is more than revenue. In 1980s, the government was going on deficit. Now when the government is going on deficit, it has three options which can solve the problem of deficit. So government can borrow either from the bank, and mostly government is borrowing from the RBI because RBI is known as government's bank. It cannot borrow money from the commercial bank, just like ICICI Bank, SBI Bank. So it has to borrow from the RBI bank only. The another option is they can borrow from the general public. And the third one is it can borrow money from international financial institution. Example, International Monetary Fund, or we can also say World Bank. So the question arises why we were in deficit during the time of 1980s. The first point is revenue were very low from public sectors. Means the revenue generation or the income generation from the public sector, mostly enterprises owned by government, were very low. Second one is no sufficient generation of fund from the taxation. Whether it is a direct tax or indirect tax, it was not being generated enough to solve all the problem of deficit. Third, continuous spending on development program. Because we came out of independence, there were many problems we were facing, just like unemployment, poverty, and many other social problems. So government, whatever revenue it was generating, being spent on different development programs, just like unemployment, poverty, etc. Large shares were spent on social sectors and defense. Third, most of the time we used to borrow. Now we used to borrow from bank, public, or international financial institution, which was mainly used for the purpose of consumption and not for any other purposes. At that time also we used to importing dollars, and we generally used to import petrols and oils. There was no effort made to boost the export. Means from the government side there was no effort or no additional measures has been taken to boost exports. So therefore in 1980 expenditure was more than the revenue. It was not able to solve by the borrowings also. Foreign reserve. Now most of the countries keep foreign reserve, but at that time our foreign reserve was left for only 2 weeks. Means we were having only 2 weeks foreign reserve for import purposes. Third one is no money left to pay interest. Now we had borrowed money, but there was no money left for the import also, as well as there was no money left for the interest payment on borrowings. The last one is no other countries as well as international funders were willing to lend money to India. These were the problems faced during the 1980s. It continued till 1990s. Therefore, in 1991, there was economic crisis. Economic crisis means where the economy is going down, there is no increase in GDP. So economic crisis has, there was no repayment on its borrowing. We were not having foreign reserves to repay our borrowings or we pay our interest. Foreign exchange reserve dropped because we were not having foreign exchange reserve. As I told you earlier also, there were only 2 weeks money left with us for the import purposes. So there was no foreign exchange reserve. Third one is no additional revenue. And because of these things, because the import has been increased and the foreign reserve were not there, therefore it is automatically price of the essential goods were rising. So Indian approach to the international bank, it has three names, known as International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, also known as World Bank, and also known as International Monetary Fund. Small introduction, what is World Bank? World Bank is also known as International Monetary Fund. Our formation is on 27 December 1945. Headquarters is Washington DC, and right now it has 189 members. It can be asked for one marks question. After approaching IMF, we have received a loan of $7 billion, but IMF has put 5 main conditions. So these are the conditions. The first condition they have put is to liberalize our economy. Now, liberalize our economy means in the chapter 1st and 2nd we have learned the government of India has closed our economy to protect the domestic companies. Therefore, liberty was not given to open a new companies. Under the IPR 1956, license was must to be taken to open or expand any businesses. Therefore, IMF wanted that there should be a liberty to open a new company, which we can say the companies coming from the outside. Okay, second condition put by the IMF was to open up our economy. Earlier, before 1990s, our economy was closed economy. It was for the purpose of protecting our domestic companies or the enterprises so that it will not face any competition against the foreign companies. So IMF wanted our economy to open up so that private companies from other countries, just like from US, China, Russia, can come and spend over here. That is also known as foreign direct investment. The third one is remove restriction on private sectors. Under this one, we can say IPR 1956. IPR 1956, that is Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, where the importance is given more to public sectors and private sector is having very less shares. In this one, the IMF wanted that all the restriction on private sector should be evaded or should be taken back. The last one, reduce the role of government. Before 1990, there was too much of role or involvement of the government was there in the enterprises or the institution. So IMF wanted all that rules to be reduced. The last one is removing trade barriers. We have put trade barriers. Example is there were few things which was not allowed to be imported in our country. So therefore IMF wanted these barriers to be removed. So after accepting all the loans as well as the condition, we have introduced the new economic policies in India. So it is also known as NEP 1991. The government has done it in two ways. The one is known as short-term measures and another one is known as long-term measures. Now short-term measures, another name is Stabilization Measures. After accepting the NEP, that is new economic policies, government tried to solve the problem which can be solved during a short period of time. These are correction of balance of payment, bringing the inflation under control and keeping the price rising under control. So these comes under stabilization measures. Now for the long period of time, that is for the long-term measures, it was aiming at increasing efficiency as well as LPG was introduced. That is liberalization, privatization and globalization. It comes under structural measures. The first one is liberalization. Now what do you mean by liberalization? It is giving a liberty. So definition said, put an end to restriction and open various sectors of economy. Liberalization was done on 5 forms. The first one is industrial sectors, then financial sectors, tax reforms, foreign exchange reforms, trade and investment policies. Under industrial sectors, the first one they have done is abolition of industrial licensing. As we have already know, under the IPR 1956, license was compulsory to be taken. If you want to open a business or if you want to expand your business, you need to take license. Therefore, they have abolished these licensing policies. Accepting these companies, just like alcohol, hazardous chemical industries explosion, you need to take a license. And it is compulsory to take a license on these companies. Second one, contracting of public sectors. Government has reduced its role in public sectors. It has invited foreign direct investment, that is, it has invited private sectors or the private companies from another countries except defense equipment, atomic energy generation and railways. Means these defense equipment, atomic energy and railways still is under the control of public sectors. Example, defense or atomic is ammunition factory. Railways is under the control of public sectors only. The last one is de-reservation. Before this one, you need to know what is reservation. Now, SSI was one of the method to solve the problem of economy. Therefore, SSI was given importance. Where the small sectors, small scale industries were given importance, there was reservation. Reservation means they were having a reservation. There was a relaxation in taxation. Now, under liberalization industrial sectors, the government has de-reserved all the things. Means now many SSI areas were de-reserved, price were determined by market forces of demand and supply. So the SSI sector, that is small scale industries, came directly into competition with private companies or the foreign companies.
Under financial sectors, before starting financial sectors, we should know what the financial sectors include. It include banking and non-banking financial institution, stock exchange market, foreign exchange market. Now, before 1990s, RBI was a regulator of all the financial sectors. Means it is forming all the rules and regulation, and from starting to end, it is taking care of all the sectors. Under liberalization, RBI just become a facilitator from a regulator. It means that it will just monitor all the things going on in a financial sector and it will not intervene in any of the things. The next one is establishment of private sector's bank. Now the private sector's banks are also allowed. Therefore, you can see the ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, all these banks are there in India. The last one is foreign institution or investors were allowed, just like merchant banking, mutual fund, and pensions funds were allowed. Tax reforms. Tax reform under liberalizations. Now, tax and the government expenditures come under the fiscal policy. So, under tax reform, there are two types of taxes. One is direct tax and one is indirect taxes. Direct tax means the person is paying directly to government. If I am earning an income and I am paying directly to government, it is known as direct tax. Now, indirect tax is on behalf of somebody you are paying the tax. Example, I went to hotel and I have paid GST and CST. I have paid to the hotel owner and hotel owner is paying back to the government. That is indirect taxes. So sales tax is indirect tax and income tax is direct tax. Under liberalization in tax reform, government has reduced the direct tax, corporate tax, and also there is a common indirect tax. Value added tax has been converted into goods and service tax. There will be a common tax, that is indirect tax. Under foreign exchange reforms, devaluation of currency on export has been increased. Trade and investment policy reforms under liberalization. Dismantling of quantitative restriction on imports and export. It means that quantitative restriction on imports and export has been reduced. That is quotas and the taxes on import and export has been dismantled, removed. The next one is reduce of tariff rate. That is import and exports. Rate has been reduced. Removal of licensing policies for the imports. Quotas on manufacturing goods and service removed. Now what do you mean by quota? Quota is restriction on quantities. Earlier the government has set a quota, that is restriction in quantities to be imported from another countries, that has been removed. The last one is export duties has been removed to increase the competitiveness. Means the export duty has been removed. Now all the foreign companies can come and invest over here. Therefore, it has increased the competition. Now coming to privatization. Now privatization means shedding of ownership or management of government-owned companies. It means that the government companies has been converted into private sectors. And how the government is doing? Government is doing in two ways. The first one is by withdrawal of government from ownership and management of public sector company. Example, a firm is there, A, that is public sector. Now what the government is doing is government is withdrawing its ownership and giving back to the private companies. Second, by outright sale of public sector company. Outright means the whole. The whole shares is being sold to the private companies. So this way the government is doing privatization in our country. Disinvestment is just selling the part of equity of public sector enterprises to public. Now why the disinvestment has been done? Disinvestment has been done to improve the financial discipline, to facilitate the modernization. Modernization means technology and everything. Then next one is private capital and managerial capabilities could be effectively utilized to improve the performance of the PSU. If the private company comes, the public sector have a competition between the private sector, therefore there will be an increase in performance. The next one is PSU, giving them autonomy in taking managerial decisions. Now public sectors is having a share in the private sectors and they are also given a managerial decisions. The last one is converting PSU into Navratnas and Mini Ratnas. The last one is globalization. Now globalization means integration of economy of the country with the whole economy. Means it is just like opening up of your economy for the world so that import and export can be done easily. Now it involves the creation of networks and activities transcending economic, social and geographical boundaries. Now globalization is very, very important if you see in case of the consumer as well as in case of the companies. Okay, outsourcing comes under globalization. Now, what do you mean by outsourcing? Outsourcing is a company hire regular services from external sources, mostly from other countries, which are previously provided internally or from within a country, like legal advice, computer service, advertisement, security, each provided by respective department of the company. Like example, India is there and US is there. Now India is a developing country and US is a developed country. US company is hiring one of the individual from the India. Now the main motive of hiring these people is there is a cheap cost as well as the skill. Therefore, it will be profitable for the both the countries because India, the person is getting employment. For US, it is a cheap manpower. Therefore, it is profitable for the developed countries also to hire the employees from the developing countries. The call center and BPOs comes under outsourcing. Under globalization, WTO comes. Now, WTO is World Trade Organization. The headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland. Founded in 1995, earlier it was a GATT, Journal Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Now, later on in 1995, it has been converted into WTO. GATT was established in 1948, where the 23 countries were there. Now, under World Trade Organization, on July 2016, there are 164 countries are there as its members. The main aim of WTO is having a administer all the multilateral trade agreement by providing equal opportunities to all the countries in the international market. Just like India is there and US is there, if they are the member of WTO, they will have a benefit of trade agreement. There will be a similar trade agreement between these two countries. What are the agreements covered under the WTO? The first one is trade in goods as well as services to facilitate international trade. It can be bilateral, it can be multilateral. Now, bilateral means between the two countries, just like India and China is there. This is a bilateral where we are doing import and export. Multilateral is India, China, Russia is there. So India is been importing, exporting to China, Russia, US. These are known as multilateral. So WTO just see and facilitate all these bilateral and multilateral trade. Second one is removal of tariff as well as non-tariff barriers. If any two countries are the member of WTO, the tariff is already been decided. And any conflict between these two countries relating to trade and tariff are solved by WTO. Merits of liberalization, privatization and globalization policies. The first one is our India become a vibrant economy. There was stimulant to industrial production. There was an increase in industrial production. Next one is a check on fiscal deficit. Yes, we were able to solve our fiscal deficit to a point. The next one is check on inflation. We were able to solve the problem of inflation. And there was also increase in foreign exchange reserves. There was increase in flow of private foreign investment. Second last is recognition of India as an emerging economic power. Because of globalization, India have a recognition in the world market as an emerging economic power. The last one is from monopoly, we have been shifted to competitive market. LPG do have a demerits relating to growth and employment. There was increase in GDP, that is gross domestic product has been increasing, but employment generation was not there. Relating to agriculture sectors, public investment means government was not investing too much on infrastructure. After removing the fertilizer subsidy, it has increased the cost of production of the farmers. Government has also removed the MSP, that is minimum support price, also decrease in import duties, lifting the quantitative restriction on agriculture, which has led to increase in international competition. Export oriented strategy means the farmers were mostly producing those goods which are used for the export purposes. That is also known as cash crop. Because there was an increase in production of cash crop, the food grain items were decreasing, which leads to increase in its price. Now, demerits under industry, decrease in demand of industrial products are due to cheap imports. Now, we were importing too much from the another country. It was cheaper than the domestic market. Developing countries were forced to open up their economy, lead to competition from the developed countries. We were facing a tough competition from the developed countries. They were having a very good quality as well as the price was less than the domestic countries. Therefore, it was a tough competition between the developed countries as well as the developing countries. Cheaper import have replaced the domestic good, as we were importing goods which are cheaper than the domestic goods. Globalization also affected employment opportunity in the developing countries. We were also facing the employment opportunity. GDP was increasing, but employment was not increasing. Disinvestment, demerits under disinvestment. Every year, government fixes a target of disinvestment of PSE, that is public sector enterprises. Most of the time, what has happened is PSE, that is public sector enterprises, was undervalued and sold to private sectors. Whatever money we used to get from disinvestment was used to solve the problem of shortage of government revenues. The last one is reform in the fiscal policies. Tax reduced did not result in increase in tax revenue of the government. Even after the tax has been reduced, there was no increase in tax revenue of the government. Tax concession to foreign investment lead to reduce in the government revenue again. Private companies are given concession relating to electricity and taxes. This has been introduced to have a good foreign investors, lead to reduce in the government revenues. So we have covered all the points relating to the third chapter of Indian economy, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. Any question or doubts relating to this topic, please do comment below.